Hey YouTube, Joeboy here. So, One Piece chapter 1029 is out. If you guys haven't checked out that chapter yet, I suggest that you do so because I will be spoiling you. But now that you have, let's begin. I'm going to be absolutely honest with you guys. Beforehand, I never thought that I would be this hyped for this chapter. Basically, what took place in this chapter, I knew was going to happen for the most part, and internally, in my mind, I thought, you know what, it's gonna be okay, maybe even good, right? But not just like, wow. That was not my experience. This chapter for me was certified wow. But let's start at the beginning. The beginning of the chapter focused on Queen and Sanji, and once again, classic Oda humor. Sanji is totally invulnerable to things, even a giant blade, and Sanji's just kind of standing there like, what's going on? And also, I don't like this. Which says quite a lot about Sanji, honestly. I mean, he's gaining a new power, which is likely going to help him fight the battle, and he in no way appreciates that, which is precisely the same thing that's taking place with the raid suit. The raid suit would help Sanji win, but he would rather lose, at least at this stage, than put it on. Just the same as he would rather lose than gain Vincent powers. Or maybe phrased in a more accurate way is, Sanji's wholly confident that he can win without them. Now I said this like this is the truth, because I know that a lot of people are going to sort of say that that's the correct take, but I'm not totally sure quite yet of Sanji's level of confidence. I think that's, if it's brought up during the fight at any point in time, that would be really interesting to me. Like, Sanji, do you not want to wear the raid suit because you know that you can win without it, aside from it being distasteful? Or are you legitimately willing to lose because wearing the raid suit or acquiring the powers is some kind of evil? I said this in this very specific way because there's a lot of evidences throughout the story that suggest, I don't know if it's been outright said, but it suggests that Sanji is willing to lose. This is actually a theory and video that I've made before. In the Baratie, the first arc that Sanji debuted in, when they held Zeph and the ship captive, Sanji refused to fight. Zeph dying and his dream being destroyed was not worth winning. It had absolutely nothing to do with his confidence in his own ability to win. It was almost just like a checkmate, like, under these circumstances, I can't win. And the same thing occurred in Whole Cake Island, very similar to Baratie, where Zeph's life was dangled in front of Sanji. He was being held hostage in a respect. And so it didn't matter if Sanji believed that he could defeat his family or not. Under those circumstances, he just couldn't fight. So he didn't, even though he was very tempted. In fact, under these circumstances, he was willing to oppose his captain and fight Straw Hat Luffy, become an obstacle to Luffy's dreams. And this applied even beforehand, when Sanji decided to go to Whole Cake Island in the first place. This is not spelled out because I think we're slowly getting there in the story, but I think Sanji knew that going to Whole Cake Island was probably a bad idea, not what his captain or the crew wanted. But at this moment, what they wanted didn't matter to Sanji. He believed that he couldn't accomplish his dreams, or didn't want to accomplish his dreams, under the scenario, in the circumstance, that cost Zeph's life. But of course, there's other things that have a similar effect on Sanji. For instance, fighting women, right? Sanji has a role to play in the crew. They're all sort of teamed up together to accomplish their dreams together, and that involves defeating their enemies. But when Sanji is faced with a woman and is forced to have to hit her or fight her, he simply can't. Winning while being forced to do that is not winning in the right way as far as Sanji is concerned, and he chooses not to, or literally can't. So again, I'll try to word this in a very particular way. Under these circumstances, Sanji's own dreams, such as finding the All Blue, as well as the dreams of his crewmates, which he also cares for, they don't matter or matter less. Sanji is willing to fail, and willing to become an obstacle to both himself and the crew when he doesn't feel as though he can win the right way as he sees it. So if Zeph's life is on the line, Sanji won't fight. Even further than this, if Zeph's dreams are on the line, then Sanji won't fight. And in Baratie, this was sort of explained to be the Baratie. The Baratie was Zeph's dream. And Sanji got mad at Luffy for destroying it in order to win. If a woman's life is on the line and Sanji can't save them, probably he will fail. If Sanji is forced to hit a woman, Sanji will fail. If Sanji has to use his hands in order to win, then he won't and he'll fail. And so very low-key in the story right now, the raid suit has become another one of these objects, for lack of a better word. If Sanji is forced to wear the raid suit to win, he will probably fail, be unable to do it. I think that it's a little bit more complicated than that. We talked about it last week, but I'll spare you. But in this way, it sort of describes Sanji as a man of incredible principle and unbreakable resolve. It also illustrates incredible selflessness, because in this, Sanji puts aside what it is that he personally wants most. His dreams, and the dreams of those that he cares about aside from Zeph, which kind of puts Zeph on a pedestal above everybody else. But it also creates internal conflict because he doesn't not care about the other Straw Hats' dreams. And so this leads to sort of the emotional moments in Whole Cake Island where, just like Zeph, right? Zeph's dream was the Baratie. He didn't want Luffy to destroy it. Well, Sanji himself doesn't want to destroy Luffy's dreams. And so these things often come to a head and are the best moments for Sanji in the story. Who does he choose? Does he choose Zeph? Or does he choose himself and Luffy? And make no mistake, guys, Oda is aware of this nuance. This is the most central conflict. When Sanji leaves the Straw Hats to go to Whole Cake Island and then eventually determines that, they'll go on without him, he can't return to them. He knows that they need him. So by doing this alone, by abandoning them, he is destroying their dreams, because they cannot accomplish them without him. So in order to have peace of mind, he deludes himself that he doesn't matter, when I suspect that he knows that he does. And so this conversation actually took place in the middle of Whole Cake Island, where Luffy had to definitively stand there and say to Sanji, I can't do this without you, which translated means I can't accomplish my dreams without you. Which puts Sanji in the center of two opposing forces pulling him, whether or not he chooses between Luffy and the crew or Zeph, when Zeph's life is on the line, or his dreams are on the line. But, and I want this understood, if Sanji had to choose between his own dreams and Luffy and the crew, or Zeph, he would always choose somebody other than himself. It just happens to be true that the crew needs him so much that their dreams are intertwined. I'm sure Sanji wishes that wasn't the case, which is the kindness that Oda alludes to and talks about a little bit in Whole Cake Island. Sanji is more than willing to sacrifice himself, his wants, his dreams for others. Selflessness. But so I've obviously said this before, but for those who haven't heard it, this is where it really becomes important and potentially mind-blowing. Sanji can't fight because Zeph and his dreams are on the line. He will continue to stand, he will bear it so that the ship and Zeph's dreams can live for one moment longer. But he can't actually fight. Not when winning means losing these things. He says, and I quote, I'll never let anything else be taken from him. So Sanji will throw his life away so that Zeph loses nothing else. But the thing that Sanji never understood in Baratie, and doesn't understand to this day, is that Sanji himself has value. If Sanji dies, if Sanji's dreams die, they will be things taken from Zeph just the same. So it's just another conflict with Sanji at the center, being pulled in opposing ways, just one that Sanji doesn't understand. Sanji will throw his life away for Zeph, so that Zeph does not lose anything else. But that act in and of itself makes Zeph lose something. Sanji says this in Baratie explicitly, and it's suggested in other places. Sanji believes himself to be worthless. It doesn't matter if he dies. It doesn't matter if he's happy. But that definitely matters to Zeph. And so I think that this leads to like the ultimate moral for Sanji. Like Sanji's final form in the series, which I think Oda's been slowly working towards from the very beginning. Sanji needs to learn to love himself. Some people will say, well, this is just so integral to Sanji's character. Why would that ever change? Well, this is the reason why I think that it will change, and it should change. Bro, Sanji is just simply willing to throw his life away if he has to hit a woman in order to win. That is who Sanji is, and it should never and will never change. But the act of this, the reason why Sanji does it is because he doesn't value himself. He doesn't love himself, which is wrong. Sanji has explicitly stated in the story what it is that he actually wants. He actually says this in the story. You can pull up the panel. He wants to be able to hit a woman, if it means fighting for his friends' dreams and lives. But he literally can't. He wants to do it, but he can't. He can't do the thing that he wants because he does not value himself at all. And so why exactly can't Sanji hit women? What prevents him from doing so? Well, we learned this in chapter 842. Zeph says, a man can't kick a woman. It's been the rule since the age of the dinosaurs. Listen up. You can make all kinds of mistakes as a human being. But if you ever set foot off the path of a proper man, then I'll cut off your balls and slit my own throat. If Sanji ever hits a woman, he believes that he will kill Zeph and take something from him. And he puts Zeph above everyone else, or at least did. So I hope that this is absurdly clear, that the reason why Sanji does things is not because he wants to do them. It's because he thinks that the people that he loves would want that. And this is directly confronted in the Baratie, as Sanji was willing to throw his life away in front of Zeph in order to save Zeph's life and the Baratie. Luffy stepped in the middle of the fight and destroyed the ship. This is their conversation. Sanji says, "Are you crazy, you crap kid? Don't you realize why I've slaved away all this time on this ship?" And Luffy says, "But if I sink it, they've got no prize." There's a panel of Zeph smiling. Sanji says, "My enormous debt and the way I feel about this ship, you could never understand." And Luffy shoves away Sanji's arm. "So you're gonna die for this ship? That's stupid." Luffy grabs him by the collar. "Getting killed is no way to repay your debt. He didn't save your life so that you could throw it away. Only a coward would do that." The moral of the story is that Sanji needs to value his own wants and needs. And this was somewhat progressed at the end of the Baratie as Sanji finally decided to leave. He never wanted to really be on that ship, but he did that. He worked to repay his debt on the ship for Zeph, while restraining his own wants. So leaving was a big step for him, choosing himself over his debt. And so since then, the stakes have been upped. Sanji has to consider whether to choose himself over Zeph's life. And I believe the natural progress of the story for Sanji's character should be to choose himself. Because Sanji has been choosing to act in a way in which he thinks that Zeph wants, not actually what Zeph wants. This is very consistent in the story and almost verbatim spelled out in the Baratie. Sanji doesn't understand what Zeph wants, because Zeph would want Sanji to choose himself. Sanji just can't believe that because he views himself as worthless. And so in this arc in Wano, we've taken a small step in that direction when Sanji asked Robin for help when fighting Black Maria. I'm not going to go into the details of it, but that was a significant moment. But I don't think that that's the final form. And so I understand that I went on for a very long time and talked very specifically and repeated myself in some instances, which really bothers some people. But anytime I talk about this, there are still people who take it the wrong way. So I mean, I'm just being quite frank with you. It seems very definitive to me. It's obviously a theory, and a theory can be and often is wrong. But some people act like saying this is like killing your firstborn child. Relax. If Zeph was watching in Eni's lobby Sanji fight Khalifa, and Sanji couldn't hit Khalifa and Khalifa was killing Sanji, what would Zeph want? Because remember, Sanji explicitly states that he wants to kick a woman, and you can see in that fight that he tries very hard to do it, he just can't. What's stopping him is what Zeph wants. So now the question is, what does Zeph want? Zeph would want Sanji to fight, because probably what Zeph wants more than anything is for Sanji to be happy and accomplish his dreams. Zeph would be okay with Sanji kicking a woman, because what Zeph said wasn't to be taken so literally, but Sanji did. Likely if Zeph were actually there watching the fight and Sanji couldn't kick a woman and there was literally no other option other than death, Zeph would be like, kick her, you idiot. But conveniently, Zeph has never been there when this particular thing has come up, so he cannot clarify his rule. And or Sanji hasn't died because there's some other way. But the possibility exists that Oda might put him in a situation in which there is no other way, and that would be very interesting to me. And so obviously we're talking a lot about a thing that is not relevant to this chapter, right? What, JB's gone off on a tangent about Sanji can't kick women. Spent the whole video talking about it, that's not even in the chapter. Well, this is important context to understand the raid suit and Sanji's thoughts about Germa. I think this understanding helps you understand the things that are currently going on. In a very, very similar way, Sanji cannot wear the raid suit. But the reason for this has not been explained yet. My theory, guys, and whatever your answer to this is a theory, but my theory is that it also relates to Sanji's debt to Zeph. And another thing that Zeph would not in any way agree with. I think that Sanji might believe accepting the raid suit, which would definitively make him a Vinsmoke in the eyes of the world, because being Germa, that raid suit has Germa connotations, so by wearing it, they recognize he's not Sanji, he's Vinsmoke Sanji. And being Vinsmoke Sanji almost disowns Zeph as his father. Or at least I speculate that Sanji might see it that way, even though it's absurd. Sanji believes a lot of absurd things, which is why he does not want to be associated with that name in any way. He's Sanji of the Baratie, which is why he won't wear the raid suit specifically, likely specifically when someone recognizes the suit for what it is. A Germa suit. But he'll wear it when he thinks that he won't be recognized, such as when he's invisible. So this is what I actually think, right? This is, if you're asking me, JB, what do you think is going to happen? That's what I think. Whether you agree or not, right? It's just, that's my theory. But there's some discussion about this, which I haven't talked about yet, and is very, well, I like the discussion, so we're going to discuss it. We've talked about a lot of Sanji's rules, right? And how they're wrong. Sanji doesn't hit women, but he wants to hit women. Sanji, you should hit women, right? Sanji doesn't wear the raid suit, you know, it's like, but he's going to wear the raid suit. You need to wear the raid suit because wearing the raid suit will make you stronger. And the Straw Hats need your strength, so just do it. But I haven't mentioned at all Sanji's decisions, and this has happened twice in the story, to feed the hungry, no matter the consequences of that. He fed Don Krieg in the Baratie arc, and he fed Big Mom in the Whole Cake Island arc. I can already imagine some people listening to this video pounding their hands on the table. JB's not about to do it, right? JB not about to say that Sanji needs to not feed the hungry. Like that, bro, you don't understand Sanji's character. It's gonna happen, I know it. But so here's a spoiler alert. I don't think that Sanji should stop feeding the hungry. Because what makes this example unique from hitting women is that this is what Sanji actually wants. Not a misinterpretation of Zeph, projecting on Zeph things that he thinks Zeph wants, or taking his words absurdly literally past the point of any rational justification. This is something that Sanji actually believes from his own life experience. And that is an extremely important difference. When Sanji chooses to feed Big Mom, he's actually not choosing Zeph. He is not choosing the Straw Hats, or their dreams. He is choosing himself, which we've talked about a lot in the video already, is my theory that Sanji should do more of this, but more related to him rather than just general kindness based on his own life experience and suffering. But what this establishes is that even though Sanji has the potential to be fighting for the wrong causes or for the wrong reasons, Sanji is still a man of very high principle and integrity, ignoring bathhouse scenes. And so, given the choice, Sanji will still try to win the right way as he sees it. And some of these will never change for sure. And I speculate that feeding the hungry is one of them. Letting a person starve to death is not winning the right way. Sanji will never do that. And he is not doing this because of Zeph or anyone else. This is Sanji's will. And so I bring this up because, again, it could be relevant to the raid suit. Whereas I've speculated, my theory is that wearing the raid suit has something to do with Zeph. But many people will probably disagree with me. And they'll say, well, no, it just has to do with the Vinsmoke. Sanji himself doesn't want to be associated with or tied to the Vinsmoke family. That's the reason why he doesn't want to wear the raid suit. It has nothing to do with Zeph, JB. And what's interesting about this is that if you assume that to be true, then this is a thing that should not change. As in me saying that as long as Sanji continues to not want to be a Vinsmoke or be associated with the Vinsmoke, then he should not and will not wear the raid suit if he believes that he will be recognized, no matter the damage, the potential damage it could cause to the crew's dreams. So this is like the other side of the coin, right? Where we're like, well, Sanji, you should do what you want to do, what's best for you, and it leads to a positive outcome. But there will be instances, such as not using his hands in combat, where I would very heavily argue that that's not going to change. Because that is what he wants. Or that is what he actually believes. And so Sanji is still the same guy that would choose to lose rather than break these rules. And I find this to be an interesting discussion now, because I think the whole community really expects that there's going to become a moment where Sanji's going to get beaten up, he's going to be losing, and it'll be win or raid suit. And everyone's expecting that he's going to choose the raid suit in order to win for the sake of others. But it could instead be a moment like feeding the hungry. One of those unique moments where Sanji chooses himself, if he really, really, really doesn't want to wear it. So that's some nuance that I'm keeping an eye on personally. Would be very interesting. But yeah, we have spent 23 minutes talking about Sanji, which was like the first 3 pages. The only other things that I want to say before we move on is Oda's almost promised in this scene that there's going to be a satisfying answer, a good answer for why Sanji's latent Vinsmoke traits are coming out. So I'm very excited to see that answer. I still don't have a great answer myself, but I trust Oda. And the other thing is that there's this implication that maybe Sanji, as he transforms, he will lose his emotions like his brothers, which is an interesting question I had not considered until this chapter. My knee-jerk reaction is, of course Sanji isn't going to lose his emotions, that's ridiculous. But if it happened, and there's ways out of this if Oda wanted to take them, if it happened, it'd be an interesting moment in the story. And it'll also have interesting implications for his brothers and sister. Because if Sanji loses his emotions, he will get them back, which means that it's possible for his siblings. But I'm not predicting that, I'm just saying in the realm of possibility. Let's talk about Hawkins and Killer, and I don't think that this discussion is going to be quite as long. I thought that it was really fitting to juxtapose Killer and Hawkins with Sanji at the beginning of the chapter, because a lot of Killer's story beats in this chapter are reflective or reminiscent of Sanji's. Killer can't win the fight because to kill Hawkins is to kill Kid. See, I told you all this discussion about Sanji would pay off. And this is what a lot of people want for Sanji, really, and want for Oda, is the way that Killer wins, and it's just by being clever, right? He doesn't break his role, he doesn't kill Kid in order to defeat his opponent, he finds a way around it somehow, which is typically how Sanji stories go. Some way, somehow, sometimes more justified, sometimes less. And it's really in these little details why I love this so much, and I didn't predict it beforehand. Like, I mean, for instance, guys, the theory that Killer would attack Hawkins' arm, the one that Kid was missing, that was speculated. A lot of people believed that, myself included, so that was just straight up called. But in how Oda decided to write it, I really got the sense of just how smart Killer was. There was an intensity behind the whole scenes. It's in these little things that really brought this moment. I mean, it hit me, and I was totally expecting it. But to go back to the comparison with Sanji, when you read the chapter, it's with this in mind, it's almost like straight up explicit. Killer says, "Release, Kid. You can have my life if that's what it takes." And Hawkins says, "That bastard is apparently facing Big Mom now. I bet he sees this as a chance to finally supplant an emperor. He sure dreams big. Stop getting in his way. You can always cut me down with those scythes if you're sick of me." All of this is just like Sanji. And it's in that realization that it's just like, whoa. And like, a lot of people might have forgotten this, but this was a theory a while ago that Killer was a Vinsmoke. And this, in a way, reignites it a little bit for me. I obviously have that theory that the Vinsmoke family by nature is kindness and all this thing. And so, you know, Sanji sort of represents what the Vinsmoke should be like, and Killer being like Sanji is just, you know, I just want to throw that out there. Maybe like a distant cousin. And then the conversation later where Killer explains how we fought through the impossible odds you foresaw and we're still here, which is a conversation about probability and taking risks and chance and fighting for your dreams. And then Killer has the moment of realization of maybe there's a way. Because there's been a way before. And the scene where he cuts off the arm is just so brutal. It's so brutal and beautiful. The look of shock on Hawkins' face, everything about this landed. But at the same time, there's a lot of little things spread in between here, which, in my opinion, is great discussion. Hawkins has this final stand with Killer where he pulls out the straw man card. He says, "The straw man can't die. Its fate is determined by the cards and it will be revived." And he pulls a card, "Show me the result of this battle," and you get the tower. The tower signifies great change and upheaval of the established order. Its hidden meaning indicates an opening of a new path. The odds are changing. The way that I understand this, or the way that I choose to understand this, is that something that had such astronomically low probability, 0.00001% chance of happening, is now vastly more likely. So it's not necessarily a new path as much as an existing path is now feasible, based on the various unlikely things that have occurred in succession. So I'm sure that most everybody took this away from the chapter, but Oda is setting up the expectation that the allies win. That's what you should take away from this, right? Like the new path is they win. I would be somewhat skeptical of that. Be cognizant of when Oda wants you to believe things, but this is still really interesting. But Oda's even a little bit more specific than this, because you have the meaning of the tower card revealed by the narrator. And then you have a panel of Kid. Yeah, never felt better. And Killer says, "Go for it, partner." The implication of this is that Kid might defeat Big Mom. My thoughts on this, guys, is obviously be careful about the expectations that Oda creates, right? Now he is telling you to believe that they are going to defeat Big Mom. My theory has been that they don't. And that is still the case. I think that Big Mom, somewhere in the middle of here, is going to have a hunger attack or something crazy is going to happen to Big Mom, because I literally believe that under normal circumstances, they cannot defeat her, which is also kind of suggested by the chapter, but it's an interesting discussion nonetheless. Either way, Kid needs his moment, and this is something that Oda is setting up in a way that really makes sense to me, where you have his scene in the middle, which we haven't talked about, where Law's basically like, "Pull your weight, bro," and he's like, "I don't know what's going on, but my head hurts." And you know that Hawkins is bashing his head and that's what's going on, but Oda has to, at some point in time, give Kid a moment, a huge moment. He has to do something of significance, and as his opponent is Big Mom, it has to be, I think, in this fight. So even if he doesn't win, I'm waiting with bated breath to see what that moment is, because I believe it will happen. Kid fans will have a moment to rejoice. I believe that with my heart. But there's more, man. Kid says this: I finally got an opportunity to take down an emperor. If I died like this, my life as a pirate would be a joke. And this is so interesting to me because I've read up on the history of the pirate captain, William Kidd, who Eustace Kidd's name is based on. And William Kidd, by historians, is considered to be a joke pirate. A pirate who was never really a pirate, who essentially failed in everything that he ever tried to do, and his legacy is a sham. The biggest joke is that Captain Kidd is remembered as a great pirate. So having this line in the chapter from Kidd about this, it's almost like Oda's taking this personally, like, no, my kid is gonna be truly worthy of the legacy that he will eventually earn. That's how I read that. Another line which stuck out to me as worthy of discussion. Hawkins says, to think you actually ate a smile fruit. You really have the worst luck, killer. Guys, luck is important to the story of One Piece. It's a concept that Oda plays with. And the same thing is true, especially when you start getting into probability, right? So Hawkins sees this various, he draws a card and there's a certain probability of thing. And so if the thing is more than 50% likely, right, then that is the likely thing to occur, right? But when the 1% thing happens, it's improbable. So when someone is like destined to win a fight like Kaido, and there's like a 1% chance that he loses, and he does lose, he's unlucky. And Hawkins is essentially saying here that there's like inherent luck, I guess, to people, that some people just possess luck almost like a trait. Or maybe that's just their fate. And it also cements to me that the fact that Luffy is gonna become the Pirate King and save the world and yada 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 is in large part because he got lucky. All the stars aligned. Which is a thing which really resonates with me because that's what life is all about. As good as you are at something, as competent, as hard as you work, luck is always a factor. And in a way, I guess it hypes me up about both Killer and Kid, that they're still here despite their abysmal luck. If they had Luffy-like luck, then we might see them, and the story might see them, people in the One Piece world might see them in a totally different light. In another universe, maybe Kid becomes the king of the pirates. He had that ability, but lacked the luck. And guys, saying it in this way almost makes me want to become a Kid stan. Like straight up, makes me want to become a Kid fan because man just didn't get any breaks. He's earned it the whole way. And the last thing that I want to draw your attention to is a theory that was shared with me by Revujo, who makes the artwork, which you should check out. But he shared his theory with me about this and it kind of blew my mind. But there's a panel in the middle of this chapter where some scrubs of the Kid Pirate says, we can't take this anymore. The fire's almost here. We need to hurry and leave before it's too late. Oda has been very, very repetitive about this fire existing, and we have for the longest time tried to understand what its great role in the story will be, because Oda has spent way too much time focusing on it for it not to be crucial in some way. And so in recent chapters we speculated that, well, Onigashima is burning like the bonfire in the Flower Capital. This is the fire festival. The fires reach up to the heavens and it reaches the ancestors and the dead. This is the festival celebrating the dead, so there's some symbolic importance there. But Revujo's theory to me was that if this fire is such a big deal, and the bombs that Yamato is looking for are such a big deal, it would be very, very interesting and incredibly intelligent if the point of the fire, in a very, no one's gonna predict this, at least not until Revujo, is that the fire sets off the bombs. Or at least the threat of that will exist. And so I really love this theory, both because it makes sense, it's an incredible subversion from our expectations. I think that it could happen, and I wouldn't know what exactly would happen next. And that's why I like it most. One of the greatest feelings for me personally when reading a story is having an author that I trust completely, like I trust Oda, and having something so wild happen that I'm left totally dumbfounded and unsure about what will happen next, but absolutely sure it's going to be amazing. But yeah, guys, this chapter was really incredible for me on so many levels. Part of that, and I understand, is just how I interpret the story. And so I think that you can start to see my perspective when I explain it and review the little things which really add to my enjoyment. So I'm glad that I'm able to share those things. But I think the chapter was well loved anyway. But for me, it just, wow, it blew me away like you guys, like I was not expecting. But as always, guys, I'm curious as to what you guys think, whether you noticed something from the chapter that I might have missed. Just share your thoughts. Like the video if you liked the video, dislike the video if you dislike the video, subscribe if you want to be notified for my future content. And as always, guys, have a wonderful day.